Good morning and welcome to Morning Moment Message. So, no guest today, just a message. So, today I'd like to share a message called God, I'm the clay and you're the potter. I'm using the text of Jeremiah, the 18th chapter, and I'm looking at the fourth to the sixth verse, but I actually want to go and back up a little bit to Jeremiah 18:1. The Lord came to Jeremiah, the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah saying, Arise and go down to the potter's house, and I will cause thee to hear my words. And so, as the scriptures say, he went down to the potter's house and he saw the work on the wheel. And uh, the scriptures talk about we are the clay and he is the potter. This is a life message that I've been preaching for actually a number of years. And I thought I'd share a Morning Moments message with you, a portion of this message about us being the clay and he is the potter. I'm reminded when I was in high school many years ago, I took Art 1. I've always wanted to be an artist, but I lack something, talent. So, but I had a desire to make paintings and sculptures and all that, but it just didn't have the aptitude for it. So I took Art 1. It seemed like an easy credit, and we had experienced different ways of art, the painting and the pencil and I remember a segment we had with the clay. Well, in this segment of the clay, we were not allowed to be on the spinning wheel, the potter's wheel, but we were allowed to in this to make a sculpture of some sort with clay. So we were Art 1 and really didn't have that. Not that I hadn't tried the spinning wheel before, but that's another message for another day. I want to focus on the clay. So our teacher said, everybody get in line and go to the bucket and get your clay. They had this 25-gallon container, garbage container, filled with clay. So I remember walking up to that clay. It was one of the ugliest things I've ever seen. In the bottom of this bucket, kids were taking and clawing and grabbing the clay out of this bucket. And grab some clay and bring it back to your station. So I remember going through and digging in there and grabbing the clay and bringing it back to my station. When I had the clay in my hand, they said, now figure out what you want to do with it. I don't know what I want to do with it. You know, if I was a farmer and had that clay, I would plow it under the ground because that's all that's good for. Just plow it under the ground, get the good dirt up. If I was a construction worker and building a road and I had that clay, that would be a good foundation just to have on the ground and pound it down so we could drive over it. But as an artist, as the potter, as the person that looks at that clay, we were given the the task to make something out of it. So Jeremiah was told to go to the potter's house. And what's the message there? You know, like the clay, there's an old song, He Took Me Out of the Miry Clay. And I looked at that bucket and I thought, that was me right there, the miry clay. And he took us out of the clay. He said, now I want to make something out of you. Many of you have come to decisions years ago or maybe recently and said, I can't control my own life anymore. I give it up to you. God, I'm yours. I'm the clay and you're the potter. And so you've given him your life. And if you haven't, there's an opportunity for you to do so. But when you give him your life, you say, okay, I'm all in, I'm all yours. You see, he sees beyond the big bucket of clay that you came from and what you look like now. He sees into the future what you can be, because that's what happens when you put clay in a potter's hands. They see what you can be, not what you are. I'm so glad that God sees beyond who I am as just a mess. He says, I'm going to take you and I can make you into something of utility. Now, again, the potter's hands, uh, the creativity of the potter says, I can make you into something wonderful. Now, you may want to be a beautiful vase. God says, uh, not so much. I want you to just be a saucer. Maybe you be a cup. See, just like my art class, I wanted to be an artist, but I lack talent. Got to have a little bit of that. But when I give God my heart and say, I want you to take control, he says, okay, let me take this glob and make something out of it. You know, the first thing you got to do with clay when you're working with it is you got to make it pliable. So what we did was slam the clay on the desk and started kneading it with our hands and make it pliable. It's one thing coming to the Lord and say, here's my life, Lord. And it's another thing saying, you now take control over it. There's a lot of hard-hearted people, just like that hard clay, that needs to be worked in the potter's hands, needs to be molded, needs to be able to be pliable, to be able to be what the potter wants us to be. And it's a process. Some people say, well, I come to you, Lord, but I didn't really want to change. It's like people going to church just to go to church to feel better. You're not supposed to go to church to feel better, folks. You go to church to be better. And part of being better is saying, God, I want you to take control of me. And as the potter takes and starts molding you, he first of all has to make you pliable. And that's what happened with the clay in my art class. Soften my heart, Lord. I've often said, God, let my heart break for what breaks your heart. Soften my heart, God, so I could hear from you. We need to know what the heart of God is. And to do that, we need to soften up. There's a lot of hard-hearted people that say they want what God has for us, but they're not willing to have them make you into what he wants you to. Before he could even put you on the wheel to the spinning and the trials and tribulations that takes place in your Christian walk, you first of all have to be willing and surrender. But God, I want to be this. Years ago, about to be a matter of fact, it was like 47, 48 years ago, I was doing a youth revival and I had an illustrated sermon, and I assigned different youth different parts of this illustrated sermon. And while I preached, they were going to act it out. And I remember this one guy I assigned to be, you be the Christian. And I remember him saying, I don't want to be the Christian. If I have to be the Christian, I'm not going to be in this play. And to this day, he probably isn't serving the Lord, unfortunately. But he wanted his own thing. God has got an assignment for you, but the first thing you need to do is to be pliable in his hands. Whatever you want me to be, but I want to be this great, wonderful vase, God. He said, I just need you to be a saucer to support the people around you. See, God sees the clay in the finished product. He doesn't see it as a glob of useless mush that is disgusting. He sees the potential in you. He doesn't see the reality of what you see in the mirror today. Oh, I'm so glad that God sees beyond my faults and my sin and my failures and my past. He says, I see you what you can be if you surrender. When surrender is your reasonable service, you can expect great things from God. I put you in my hands and I surrender. You know, God loves you enough to take you just the way you are. He will reach in that bucket of clay and pull you out of the depths of where you're at. But he also loves you enough to not let you stay that way and say, I've got greater things for you, things that you will never, ever imagine. I have a plan for you, plans for you to prosper, plans for you that you don't even see now. Because he sees tomorrow, you see yesterday. He sees the future. All I have is the past. God's got a plan for you. He loves you and cares for you. So as we start doing more and more of these morning moment messages, I want you to share this message with other people. We'll have guest on morning moments like we normally have, and we'll have guests. They'll talk about what do they do and why do they do it. But I want to take some time and just give you a message. It's time for you to yield. It's time for you to say, I'm all in, God. Not only have I given you my heart, now make my life pliable so you could mold me into the work of art that you have designed for me. The designer of heaven and earth is not done with your story yet. Let him put you in the palm of his hands. Hey, thanks for joining me for Morning Moments message. And if you would, keep coming back and share this message with others. And be praying for me, folks, because I need your prayers and you need the practice. God bless you and keep coming back for some more morning moments.